Finally, it's Monday again. Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. Been waiting all weekend to get back here. Thanks for being with us. Means everything that you are here with us. Hope you are all well, especially those of you down around New Orleans and Mississippi and Alabama, and I am not sure where else. Many prayers have gone out for you. I hope that they have been effective. Well, I'm sure that they have. 888-318-7884 is our number here. And our first hour guest is Trent Horn. We're going to talk about being persuasively pro-life. Hi, Trent.
Hello, Cy.
You are in Dallas, where you are well west of that storm, right? You didn't see even a bit of it.
No, just a few little gray skies here and there, but I don't know if it, maybe it reached my house some way. I'm not sure, but my entire home's internet went down like 5 minutes ago before the show started. I was getting the little no internet dinosaur here on my Chrome browser.
Oh.
I wonder if he has, you know that guy, right?
I don't think I know the no internet dinosaur. No.
Well, what browser do you use? Do you use Chrome? Are you still using? Are you using Internet Explorer?
No, I use something called Brave.
Brave?
Yeah, you never heard of it?
I thought that was a Pixar movie, but
it is,
right.
I think, as well. Yeah, it's a word that's used for more than one thing. It's a highly secure browser for very suspect people. That's why I am using it.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to check it out then. But, yeah, so I've just got the little, on Chrome, I guess it gives you a little dinosaur, and it says no internet. But that's okay. You guys have connections, and I'm excited to talk to people about how to be persuasively pro-life, how to talk about abortion and pro-life issues, address pro-life arguments. And if anyone happens to be pro-choice and has some thoughts, I'm happy to talk with them, too.
888-318-7884 is the number. And Trent is sincere. If you are a pro-choice person and you'd like to discuss these things, maybe explain to us why we're wrong, because we do not hide the fact that we are completely pro-life. 888-318-7884. Trent is the author of a book called Persuasive Pro-Life, along with a whole bunch of other books, including Answering Atheism, Why We're Catholic, one of the most popular books. No, I think now the most popular book ever published by Catholic Answers Press. And he's an apologist here at Catholic Answers. If you want to talk with him about being persuasively pro-life, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Trent, here in California, we're having a governor recall, which is apparently something we do, I don't know, every 6 or 8 months here in California. We recall a governor, recall somebody. It's like impeachment on the federal level now. And I noticed that all of a sudden the governor is talking all about abortion. And it has nothing to do with the issues that are on most people's mind for the election, but it does seem to me that it's like a, I don't know if it's almost like a scare tactic. Like, if you don't vote for me, you're going to get some crazy pro-lifer in there. Have you noticed this?
Yeah, it's a pet issue. For someone who once thought the recall wasn't a big deal, what might happen is if Gavin Newsom were recalled and a pro-life individual were installed as governor, and Senator Dianne Feinstein of California were not able to finish her term, then a pro-life senator could be placed on the Senate, right, changing the balance of power in the Senate, and then possibly changing the confirmation of justices of the Supreme Court. And it's all because somebody couldn't resist their fancy maskless dinner. But in any case,
that's why people are so mad at our governor out here, of course, is telling everybody that they had to wear masks, which fine, but then he went out to dinner without his mask on in a restaurant.
But no, that's what they want to always bring up is the issue, say, this is, because they know there is a sizable majority of people. And what's interesting, they don't say things like, they're going to change the laws on same-sex marriage, because that's one you've got very, very high public support, unfortunately, for the legal redefinition of marriage. Yeah. When it comes to the issue of abortion, we have held the line solidly for 50 years, in spite of a well-funded opposition that would love to see abortion be just an accepted social norm. And the fact that abortion also, it's always hard. Sometimes pro-lifers they get frustrated, like, we're not making any progress. To me, the fact that we have maintained the stalemate, where it's like
Yes.
25% of people want abortion, 25% want it illegal, 50% are the mushy middle. The fact that we've maintained the stalemate, and it's not symmetrical, the for and against abortion. Like I said, you've got demonic forces, frankly, working for keeping abortion legal, and abortion is a sinful temptation, and so it sells itself to people.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's right. It's its own advertising. They're going to take something away from you.
Have you ever noticed that? Think about it, Sai. Have you ever seen a commercial for abortion?
No.
Yeah,
No, I see what you're saying.
That, you can operate a well-funded abortion
That's a great
industry
point.
knowing that people will come find you. You don't have to find them. It's all very insidious.
Yeah, it's so. I don't know. I feel like California would be a better state if we. I don't know if this wasn't the scare tactic that was used. I don't know. I guess you can't wish for what isn't the case, but I do often in California feel envious of people who get to vote and they get a choice between a Republican and a Democrat, and they're both pro-life. That's all. I'm not asking for Democrats to go away or Republicans to go away. I just like both of them.
It would be nice to see more people pursuing elected office who are pro-life, and frankly, there are people, in both parties who identify. It's not uncommon, Sai, in California. You might have a Republican and a Democrat, and both are pro-choice.
That's the problem. Is we get that choice where everybody's pro-choice, but we never get the choice where everybody's pro-life. And now I can just vote for you on your merits.
Not in that state for now, but things can always change. That's why we have to. And
Right.
people will say, "Why are you trying to change the laws? You should change hearts." And I agree, but the law is also a teacher. But at the same time, it will be difficult to change laws unless we also change hearts as well, which is why I think it's important for us to have these conversations about the issue of abortion and to do so in a persuasive way. It's why I wrote my book, Persuasive Pro-Life. It's why I like counseling people on how to talk about these issues, how to answer objections, and I'm happy to do that.
888-318-7884 is our number. Tom in New Jersey, watching on YouTube, is first today. Tom, thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Hello, guys.
Hi, Tom.
Yep.
Howdy,
okay, so there's one weird case that I'm not sure how to respond to. And the case is this. Be prepared. This is going to sound very obscure, but hey, so it's pushing a fat man in front of a trolley.
No,
So
in
the case is
philosophy, there's all kinds of obscure thought experiments that must be raised. But go on.
Right. Yeah, so this is the case. One day, a woman becomes pregnant with an embryo that she herself did not conceive. So let's say one day while she was sleeping, some crazy person implants a completely different embryo into her. And now she doesn't want to be pregnant and she's considering aborting it. So the question, whether that would be wrong. Now, you and others often use this kind of analogy to bring out the wrongness of abortion. It's what you might call the woman in the cabin case. So let's say a woman is in a cabin, she's 9 months pregnant, maybe she never knew she was pregnant, and she goes into labor and gives birth. She's in a snowstorm, and she's going to be there for a couple days. She has sufficient food for herself, but she doesn't have any formula, and which means she has to breastfeed this baby or else the baby's going to die. And the question, well, does she have a legal duty to breastfeed? And in normal cases, I'm inclined to say yes. So if she gives birth to her baby that she conceived with her husband, then I would say yes, of course she has to breastfeed. And even if, God forbid, maybe she was a victim of rape and she gave birth to that baby, I'm inclined to say yes, she does.
But do you think this is different? There's an important difference between that and the case you're proposing?
I'm sorry. What's the?
You're showing examples where a mother has a duty to care for her child using her body. But then you gave us this example. How would the pro-life ethic apply to a woman who has become pregnant with an embryo that is not genetically related to her in any way? Does she have a moral obligation to continue that pregnancy, or could she have an abortion?
Yeah, and the reason I'm not sure is because a while back, a former colleague of yours from that organization, Justice for All, I think Steve Wagner, he wrote this paper and he proposed a twist on that analogy where one day a woman is kidnapped and brought to a cabin, and she is lactating, and in the cabin is a different baby. And the question, does she have to breastfeed that baby? And the pro-life group, the Equal Rights Institute, they've asked many people, and many pro-choice people have said, no, the woman in that case would not incur a duty to breastfeed.
And we don't have to make it as we don't have to make it as lurid. You could just say somebody drops a baby off at your doorstep. Like, what obligations do you have to this strange child that has now been placed into your care? Well, I do have a few thoughts on all of this. First, number one, I think that the fact that pro-choice advocates have to resort to very bizarre counterexamples and thought experiments, like being plugged into violinists, embryos being implanted within someone that are not biologically related to that person, it has to go so far, because I think the pro-life argument for the humanity of the unborn and the general obligation mothers and fathers have to their unborn children, I think it's very strong. And so it applies, I'm going to say, in 99.99999% of cases. And now, any position that you hold, I will say this, anytime you have an ethical position and principles that are laid down, you might get to hard cases where you might have to bite the bullet, or you're not sure what is the right answer there. And so pro-choice advocates have to deal with this all the time when their position leads up to infanticide, whether they will bite the bullet or accept something that's not great. So here, in this example, it's interesting. You have a woman with an embryo implanted within her, and I might summarize it. Well, I'll see how far we can get before we have to go to our break. So normally, I would say, mothers and fathers have duties to their unborn children because they're the mother and father. In this case, though, you have an embryo. It's not even biologically related to this woman, and she did nothing to cause the embryo to be there. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I apologize. Was it Tom? Is that your name? Tom?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. I'm still tracking. I'm going to... my first intuition is that she ought not kill that child. That is a baby that has been placed into her care through unjust means, but she should not kill that baby. And I'm trying to think as to what would... Now, here's where I think might be your concern. You might say, hey, Trent, if you say she can't kill that child, does that mean if you're plugged into the violinist or somebody needs your organs for 9 months, do you have to donate organs to people? And I don't think you have to donate organs to people either. So the key for me would be, how can I reconcile this? And the only way I could do that would be to find some kind of disanalogy between the two. So is that all making sense, my thought process as we're going forward?
Yeah, so I have a question, because, I'm want a position that's backed by reason, and I'm also a Catholic, so I don't want to be in heresy. But is it possible for a pro-lifer in good faith to say it's possible that in these rare cases, like the case I just described with the unrelated embryo, it's possible that she should be allowed to have an abortion? Not certain, though.
Well, here's what I would say. Pope St. John Paul II made it very clear in Evangelium Vitae that direct abortion as a means or an ends is always condemned. So if that scenario, which it seems to me that it qualifies under it, would fall under that. Now, I will give you some different options to consider here. So one would be that the magisterium would condemn that aborting an unrelated embryo that's placed inside you, and that's not necessarily, well, it's interesting, like when would that ever happen? You have these surrogate mothers. Let's say someone goes to the IVF clinic to get their embryo, right? And then the doctor puts the wrong one in, and the lady is like, nope, it's not the embryo I ordered, which shows how ugly and evil IVF is, commodifies children. We would have to, let's just, get rid of it. Well, I would say, no, you can't do that to this child, but I would say that it is not on par with refusing to donate an organ. One would be the organ is naturally designed to sustain the child. The other is a distinction between actively killing someone and letting die. Now, I know there are rejoinders that are made and the cases can be changed, but I just want to end here because we're going to have to go to a break soon. So I would say the church condemns direct abortion. And it may be the case that we know theologically this is wrong, and maybe it doesn't fit under a neat philosophical argument, but the church has revealed to us, no, this must not be done. Someone might also try to argue maybe it's not direct abortion. I would say that it is. It seems pretty clear. But imagine somebody implanted an embryo in a male abdomen or a female abdomen. Would removing it be direct abortion? I don't think it would. If somebody implanted an embryo in one of those cases, that happens all the time. That happens sometimes with ectopic pregnancies. So I think there has to be more to mull over it. But I would say my firm intuition is that case of the unrelated embryo constitutes direct abortion that has been condemned. But there might be some other exigent factors that I would say even theologically we know that some things are wrong, even if we don't have a complete philosophical argument. But I also think that there's morally relevant differences between the cases, but unfortunately I wouldn't be able to tease it all out on air. But I will fully reaffirm the fact that pro-choice advocates, they end up that this is the only type of abortion we could defend, possibly, which are ones that basically never happen. I think it shows the real strength and robustness of the pro-life position. But Tom, I know we've spoken before on these issues. I really appreciate your desire for a bulletproof philosophy and strong case. So definitely call back or shoot me an email. I want to work out everything for you, but I appreciate you really using your mind to think through all this. So thanks for calling.
Thanks, Tom. Trent Horn, our guest this hour. Persuasively pro-life is our topic. If you'd like to be more persuasive in your pro-life position, or if you are a pro-choice person who'd like to challenge Trent, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
How are you listening to EWTN Radio right now? Have you ever wished you could listen on a local radio station? Maybe our Lord is speaking to your heart to help make that happen. Don't let a lack of experience hold you back. Find out how you can help start a Catholic radio station where you live. Powered by the truth of the Church and EWTN's dynamic radio programming. Email Steve at this address, radio@ewtn.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Our guest is Trent Horn. You probably know him from his podcast, which you can find at TrentHornPodcast.com. It's the Council of Trent, growing all the time in popularity. But you might know him from his book, Why We're Catholic, which is on sale right now. I just want to read you what somebody said. And Trent, please don't interrupt me while I'm complimenting you. This is what an actual person wrote to us. Brian wrote, "This book is such a critical tool for me. I'm in sales and I meet with people all the time who I have given this book to. 3 categories of people are ripe. Current Catholics, either to correct or confirm their faith, fallen away Catholics who need to understand what they left, and non-Catholics who are open to reading. I just wait to see if there's an interest in discussing the faith, and then I probe a bit about Catholicism, and then I ask, do you enjoy reading? And if they say yes, I give them the book. You can pick up a copy of Why We're Catholic at shop.catholic.com or at the new website, whywearecatholic.com, whywearecatholic.com. It's available in softcover, in a case of 20 at a deeply discounted price, and that allows you to give them away to other people, or you can get it in ebook format or even on Audible. Whywearecatholic.com. Again, Trent Horn, our guest, and we go now to Melanie in Indiana, listening on Redeemer Radio. Melanie, thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Melanie.
I am a full-time pro-life activist, and I'm constantly trying to reevaluate effective strategies. I've done graphic image outreach on college campuses, and I find it to be very effective. I'm a little bit less convinced of its effectiveness for sidewalk counseling at abortion clinics. So I'd like to get Trent's thoughts on if it is the use of graphic imagery at abortion clinics is an effective tool.
Sure. Here's what I would say about graphic images. I've also done graphic image displays at college campuses, and I also find them to be very effective. I believe it is not intrinsically immoral or intrinsically evil to show graphic images of deceased persons. I mean, we do this all the time in other contexts, right? We show deceased individuals at Holocaust museums. There are even graphic images that are done on billboards for important social causes. I do believe, though, that pro-life advocates can reasonably disagree amongst each other when it comes to what's most prudent, right? What's the best way to use graphic images? So the way I look at them is this. I think I want to show as many people who are thinking of getting an abortion as possible these images, while at the same time minimizing exposing very young children who don't need to see these images. I think we should protect young children from abortion, from being aborted, and also just having their innocence marred by hearing about abortion as long as we can. Though honestly, they figure it out. My kids figured it out real early. I didn't even tell them about it, and they kind of figured out, what was going on. So that's why I like college campuses, because college campuses have lots of people who might go and obtain an abortion or pay for one, and very, very few children are there, and it's a place for debate. I also think abortion facilities are a good place to use them, though pro-lifers can disagree about how effective they are, because at an abortion facility, what you're trying to do is you're trying to, one, let people in the community know what is happening there and putting pressure on the facility, and you're also trying to reach out to those women and men who are thinking of obtaining an abortion, and you ideally want them to change their minds about it. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, a woman with an unintended pregnancy might see a graphic image sign, be disturbed, and run inside the building. But I've also seen that some people will see the signs and go and talk to people after they realize that they don't want to do this. Some people will even see the graphic image signs outside of an abortion facility and continue driving and not keep their appointment. So it's just kind of a judgment call you and other activists working together have to make. But I think it can be justified. But I also understand from people who might have different approaches that they think work better. So I think it's up to different individuals to decide. But I think those two contexts, like I don't personally agree with like just driving around a city with a truck with abortion images, because I don't think that's as productive. But like either a college campus or in front of an abortion facility to say, why are you on the street doing this? There's little kids that walk by. I would say they do this to little kids right in that building right there. And we want to help them. In any case, is that helpful as a response on the issue?
Yes.
Great. And thank you for your pro-life work.
Yes,
Yep.
keep up your good full-time work.
Yep.
All right, going to keep moving. We're talking about how to be persuasively pro-life today with Trent Horn. He's the author of the book, Persuasive Pro-Life. And now we're going to go to Pittsburgh. Jason in Pittsburgh, listening on EWTN. Go ahead, Jason, with your question for Trent.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm a Protestant. I'm pro-life. I love the Catholic Church. I want to know more about it. I think a lot of it's misunderstood. My question is, in regards to the COVID-19 vaccine and connection with aborted fetuses and the research and testing, why is the Catholic Church taking a stance of, because our bodies are the temple of God, and Scripture talks about defiling it.
Okay,
So,
Jason, I'm going to let him answer just because there's
curious,
only about a minute left. So I think we got the question. Why is the church allowing the use of these vaccines, Trent?
Well, the church, you cannot do something, you cannot perform like an intrinsically evil thing in order to accomplish a good. But in our world, we often have to cooperate with evil. There are evil things that have happened connected to the good things we use. So a vaccine, using a vaccine to prevent an illness, for example, or using a medication to treat an illness, by using these things, those are good things. but what if the medicine to treat your illness came from an unethical experiment? Or, as in the case with some of the vaccines for COVID-19, some of the vaccines, during their testing process, they were tested, not created, but tested using cell lines that came from an abortion that occurred several decades ago, the HEK293 cell line. And so is it permissible? Well, the church has taught that is a remote cooperation with evil, and it's something that happens often in bioethics. For example, other treatments, things like pain relievers, even ivermectin that is used to treat COVID-19 has cooperation with abortion, but it's very remote and removed, so it's morally acceptable.
Catholic Answers Live.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers is doing it again. We're holding our 7th annual Apologetics Conference this September in beautiful San Diego, California, and we'd like to see you there. Join us September 23rd to 26th for a lively and inspiring conference with an all-star lineup of speakers guaranteed to jumpstart your faith. It's a great chance to meet all your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and very special guests as we spend 4 days talking about worshiping and adoring our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. This is where it all begins. Don't miss what promises to be the event of the season. Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite, inspire, and inform your faith. Seats are still available, but they're going fast. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 888-291-8000 to register.
This is Dr. David Anders. Does the problem of evil keep you from believing in God?
Join us for Call to Communion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Persuasive pro-life this hour on Catholic Answers Live. You are welcome to call whether you are pro-life or pro-choice or you categorize yourself some other way. 888-318-7884 is the number. On the line with us is Jason in Pittsburgh, and we kind of cut our guest, Trent Horn, off in the middle of his answer. So the basic question was, Jason is sympathetic to the Catholic position, a pro-life Protestant person, wants to know, why does the Catholic Church allow the use of aborted fetuses? You were just about done with your answer, I think, Trent. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure. And then, Jason, I'd like to send you a copy of my book, Why We're Catholics. You can learn more about the Catholic faith. But the basic idea is this: you can't do something intrinsically evil to accomplish a good. Using a vaccine or a medicine is not evil in and of itself. It might have been involved in an evil thing sometime in the past, but that's true we live in an evil world. Like when you go to Target or you go to a store and you buy something, some of the money you give the store is going to be donated to Planned Parenthood or LGBT stuff. And you know that if you go there, your money will eventually end up in a bad place. But it's not sinful for you because the connection to the evil is so far away, removed from you. And these things happen a lot. For example, if you live in the South and you go buy something at a store, it probably got there on railroad lines that were built by slaves. So slavery made it possible for you to buy stuff now. Slavery is evil, but it's not evil to buy stuff that came from that evil process, because once again, the connection is remote. And the same would be true for cell lines, not the actual cells of an aborted child, but a cell line that has been copied from that was used to test whether the vaccines are effective, or these same cell lines have been used from aborted fetuses to test many other drugs that are used in the pharmaceutical industry, including therapeutic treatments for COVID-19, such as ivermectin, or I think Regeneron, I forget the name of the drug, was the one that Trump used after he contracted COVID-19. And so it's ethically allowed, but we should still do what we can to vocally oppose this kind of research. But it's still allowed if there's a proportionate reason for using these kinds of medicines. So is that a helpful reply?
Yeah, I mean, it helps me better to understand the Catholic position, because as a Protestant, the sanctity of life is really important, even though you got your position about, it happens, decades ago. As a Protestant, we believe that, and I'm sure you guys do too, that, in Jeremiah it talks about God knew us while we were in the womb. So it's hard for me.
But the point is not that the abortion happened a long time ago. The point is that in using a vaccine now that was tested on these lines, you're not committing an evil. For example, no more abortions have to be performed in order to use the vaccine. But sometimes there are goods we will get in the world that will have been the result of evil things, like railroads built by slaves, medical research conducted by the Nazis. And did you see my example where, by that logic, if we opposed COVID vaccines, we'd also have to oppose over-the-counter pain relievers, I think like Advil. There are certain over-the-counter pain relievers, many other drugs, and COVID-19 treatments like ivermectin and Regeneron. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, because they were also tested on those cell lines. Right? You see, it wouldn't just be the vaccines. You'd have to reject all of it.
Jason, if you would, if you hang on the line, we're going to get your address and we'll send you Persuasive Pro-Life. But EWTN has a very nice page on moral cooperation in evil, and it explains, and you can kind of see the different aspects of how Catholics think about these moral questions, for whether it's a remote or proximate, and whether it's intentional or unintentional, or material or not, and so all of those are important things, and it's a very well developed moral kind of understanding, one that has had a very positive influence for well over 1,000 years in the world. So if you'd like to find that, you can just go to your search engine and type in moral cooperation in evil and then the letters EWTN, and you'll come right to the page. I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to understand how Catholic moral reasoning is done, because moral reasoning is not easy, and the Catholic Church has a long history of very clear rules for moral reasoning. Thanks, Jason. Just hang on, and we'll get you that book if you want it. We're going to go now to Timothy in Houston, Texas, listening on 1430 AM. Timothy, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Trent Horn.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I happen to be an Orthodox Christian who's been listening to Catholic radio for about 4 years. And I, of course, want to say right at the outset, we Orthodox are on the same page with our Catholic brothers and sisters on the topic of abortion. We think it's a terrible sin, and it's killing, taking the life of a human being. With that said, I notice, regardless of which church someone holds to, typically conservative Christians tend to be also conservative politically, and so the abortion issue, when it comes to politics and policy decisions, kinds of ends up in what I call the package partisan politics syndrome. And so that on the conservative side, people that support banning abortion and protecting the unborn tend also to support, for example, dropping bunker buster bombs on babies in Baghdad and trying to annihilate Saddam Hussein. And then on the other side, of course, on the more liberal and left-wing side, who tend to try to present themselves as the champions of the downtrodden and the voiceless and so on, seem to have no qualms about aborting babies or snuffing out the life of someone like Terry Savallo, who couldn't speak for herself, and so on. And so
it's inconsistent.
So it seems to me, number one, and actually, I think in many respects, the Catholic Church from over the years has tended to be more balanced than a lot of churches have been on this. But it seems to me that we would be far more persuasive if we just say right down the line, if you're a follower of Jesus, you're not going to agree with the left or the right on everything, and we need to point out where both sides fail.
Okay, I'm going to let Trent respond to that, Timothy.
I think that I agree with you that our pro-life witness needs to be consistent, and the pro-life position is that every human being has a right to life, and you shouldn't directly kill innocent human beings. And so I would also agree there is no, for Catholics, there is no political party where every single position the party articulates will perfectly align with Catholic moral theology. There is no Catholic political party. That being said, I think one can make a case that in certain elections or among certain parties in certain countries, that some parties are closer to Catholic morality than others. And I think people can make that argument even if no party is perfect. Some parties may be more closer to Catholic values than others, or some candidates may be closer to I think certainly some candidates are going to be closer to Catholic values than others, even if some of them aren't perfect. But I will say what's interesting is sometimes the inconsistency, like the dropping the bunker bombs on kids, I think you actually see that in both parties when you look at the way both parties have voted for military intervention overseas and things like that. But consistency is key. That's why Cardinal Joseph Bernardin spoke of the seamless garment. You can't rip it apart and say some life issues don't matter. On the same token, though, not every life issue will receive the same marshaling of our resources. I'm sure 40 people, every year about 40 people are killed by cows in the United States, but we rightly considered COVID a more pressing threat than cows, given the scope of the lives that are lost. And so if we rightly treat some grave threats to life on a mass scale as having more priority than others, then I think that would also apply to abortion as well. But thank you so much for calling in. Nice to speak with an Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox brother in Christ, and we hope you'll keep listening to Catholic Radio and definitely call back in the future.
If you, I'd just like to, Timothy, thank you also for the call. But we did on the first week of August, we did a focus episode. I don't know if you've ever listened to our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus, on bombing people and on the particular problem of the killing of innocents in warfare. And I just recommend, I commend it to you, and maybe you will you'll find it interesting and helpful, and maybe encouraging, because I think, Trent, it does seem to me that first of all, I didn't know that cows were murdering so many people. That's upsetting. I'm going to have to deal with that later. But
although I will say this, Si, if the cows were on their way to the slaughterhouse, they might say it was in self-defense.
Yeah, but your point, I think, is well taken. That not everything. Not everything. I mean, there's not a moral equivalence between the death penalty and abortion for a variety of reasons, but not least of which is millions of people are aborted. The death penalty is very rare, but that doesn't.
Yeah, here's take the death penalty versus abortion, which of course the church teaches is inadmissible, but still, more people will die, more human beings will die from abortion by the end of the day tomorrow than have been killed by state executions in the United States since the death penalty was reinstated.
Wow.
I think in 1976.
Yeah.
So, and I also think,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Trent, but I mean, the fundamental correctness of what Timothy said, though, I don't want to just gloss in saying that, because he's like dropping a bomb that you think, well, it'll end the war sooner, but all we'll have to do is just kill these innocent children.
That indiscriminately targets civilians.
Yeah, no, I don't mean by accident, but I mean intentionally, in a terrorizing way.
Intending the deaths of civilians.
Right.
Yes.
it's
wrong. Yeah.
It's as wrong as abortion, and we should be absolutely unashamed to say it here, there, and everywhere.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. Suppose we told someone, hey, if you bomb this children's hospital, the morale of the enemy will be depleted so much they will almost certainly surrender.
Exactly, right.
I would say, like, consider that. We are directly targeting a children's hospital to end a war. I would say, yes, that is no different than abortion. You're directly killing children to achieve what you think is a good end, and that should not be done outside of the womb, nor should it be done within the womb.
Right. All right. Thanks, Timothy. Thanks. I really do appreciate the wide view of the pro-life position, and I appreciate the caller who reminds us of the wide view of the pro-life position is. You cannot take, no matter how expedient it is, whether in warfare or in the political realm or whatever, you cannot directly attack innocent human life. And I appreciate Timothy's call. And we'll take a quick break and be right back with more Trent Horn.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
I just want to share that 5 years ago, my lovely warrior princess and saint of a wife and I decided to adopt a little girl through foster care. She is the perfect round out of our family of 3 boys and her. Yes, there are challenges. Very grateful today for all the blessings that he has shown our family.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Next hour, we've got a wonderful guest. Rylene Simpson's going to be with us, and we're going to talk about if you have family members with same-sex attraction, anybody who's maybe not sure how to live out the Catholic faith and also be loving and helpful to family members with same-sex attraction. Maybe that's not the issue. Maybe the issue, it's another issue. But if you'd like help in that area, Rylene is the person to talk to. Been participating and leading Encourage, the ministry to families of those with same-sex attraction for a long, long time. And so we encourage your call if you'd like some help in that area, or just maybe there's somebody you know needs help and you'd just like to know what to say to them. 888-318-7884, our number. It's Persuasive Pro-Life this hour. Up next, we go, I'm having a little... Gil in the Bronx. Yeah, we're going to our good friend Gil in the Bronx. I wasn't sure if that was Gil, but hi, Gil. This is our good friend, huh?
Yes, I love your show very, very, very much. I've been listening since 2011. I have a question. It's not easy for me to ask, but years ago, my girlfriend, she just passed away in November, of course. And when she was 13, she told me that when she was 13, she was raped. And if I remember correctly, she told me that I guess her parents forced her to have an abortion. And it's so painful for her that when I tried to play the Bible Answer Man, I don't know if you heard of Hank Hanegraaff, his wife was comforting people that had abortion, Kathy Hanegraaff, and also women that have miscarriages. It's so difficult for me to talk to her about it. I mean, she felt like guilty, so I tried to get her to listen, but she was so uncomfortable, she just couldn't even try to listen to it because it's so painful. How do you help a woman that's going through the guilt and the remorse, because she always says, I'm unworthy, she used to say, to go to heaven and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The Lord with her.
I think you're speaking for many, many people, Gil. I really do appreciate that. I'm glad you called and asked this question. How do you address that?
And I think, Gil, and for anyone else who struggles with that, is for them to know that their sins are not greater than God's mercy. It's almost, and I don't want, it's always hard when someone is in a lot of pain and guilt over something that they have done in life. And you'd have to tread carefully when you're engaging someone. But sometimes you're almost tempted to want to say, when you think that God can't forgive your sin, that's prideful. As if you're thinking that your sin is somehow worse or like the bigger than God, bigger than anybody else's sin. You are not that special. You are a sinner. I am a sinner. We cannot save ourselves. If we were to be judged by our merits alone, they would be like filthy rags, and God would say, "Get out of here." I don't know if he's from Long Island or whatnot, but I imagine that. And so that's what that is for all of us to see, that no, we judged on our own merits, none of us deserves eternal life. And there's many healed, not just having abortions, of people who have had affairs, people who have been negligent, and even their negligence resulted in someone's death, for example, or they wrecked a marriage, or they feel like they sent their kids down the drain. We all have these weights hanging over us, and the question is, do we think that we're going to pridefully carry the weight, even though it doesn't feel like pride, it just feels like guilt? The devil is sneaky. He uses our guilt to inflame our pride. Instead, to say, no, God loves you, and he wants to take this weight away from you. He wants you to go to him and seek forgiveness. Go be baptized. Go to confession and seek out God. But I think the other point to remember is that God wants you to have forgiveness and to be healed, but that while forgiveness may be obtained in the sacrament of confession and you're freed from your sins, you may your entire life never be freed from the trauma that has been inflicted. And so while we must not confuse the lifelong healing from the trauma involved with the power of God's grace that he can give us right now to free us from our sins. Also, I would recommend, so those who are involved in abortions that are seeking forgiveness and healing, definitely check out an organization like Rachel's Vineyard. Rachel's Vineyard offers post-abortive retreats. They also have usually networks to help men who have been involved in abortion procedures to find healing and reconciliation. So that's Rachel's Vineyard. If anyone is post-abortive and they want to look up a retreat or look up resources, I would definitely recommend that. The group is called Rachel's Vineyard. If they don't have a local retreat, they can probably direct you to some local resources as well. But Gil, thank you for bringing up that important group of people for us to help. And I hope that those resources are helpful to anyone who's listening. Thanks, Gil. It's always nice to hear from you. Eddie, in Michigan, you are next. Eddie Washington on YouTube. Go ahead, Eddie.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my call. So I was debating with someone, and I just didn't know how to answer this. Someone said they believe it's... So they said even if the baby has to... let me kind of correct myself. That we were debating how old the baby has to be, or whatever's in the womb has to be considered a human being. And then they had said, so even if the baby has to stay in the hospital and be helped to survive, then I believe it's human. But until it can survive with no matter how much medical assistance, no matter how much it may be, I do not believe it is human and has the right to be aborted and has the right to be aborted. And I know how to debate, when it's outside the womb, no matter how much assistance it's receiving it is, but I just didn't know how to answer when they said if it cannot survive when it's out. They got him that.
Okay, sure. Trent.
Well, I think you should call them out on what seems very arbitrary, because I would ask them, why? Why do you have to be able to survive outside of the uterus to be a human being? Because it seems like a circular argument to say, well, why do you have to survive? Why is it? You have to be able to survive outside the uterus to be a human being. And so I say, well, because that's when you can live on your own. And why does that matter? Well, you can't really live on your own. You're going from one kind of dependency to another kind of dependency. It seems like the argument is just basic to say you have to survive outside of the womb to be a person. Well, this is the argument. A fetus is not a person because it cannot survive outside of the womb. Now, the term cannot survive outside of the womb, that's just another definition of fetus, right? What is a fetus? A fetus is a human being that can't live outside the uterus. So the argument a fetus is not a person because it cannot survive outside of the womb is identical to saying a fetus is not a person because it is a fetus. And that, my friends, is the fallacy of circular reasoning. Unless the person can give an additional reason to say why living in the womb rather than outside of it takes away your value, then this is just like saying women are not persons because they don't have a Y chromosome. Who would ever be convinced of an argument like that? That's a circular argument. To say women aren't persons because they don't have a Y chromosome. Well, why does having a Y chromosome matter? Well, because that's what makes you a man. But notice it's the same thing. It's just repeating women aren't persons over and over again. It's not an argument. The same thing happens when you say the unborn just because they can't survive outside of the womb. So really press them on that to say, well, why? And also you should press them on this. When a dog or a cat is born, it can survive outside of the womb, but it's not a person. So why is it that the only human beings that matter are those that are born? And to me, it's just an assumption. It's not an argument. No independent reason is given. And then finally, I might make an argument in reverse and say, look, it's worse to harm an infant than it is to harm an adult because infants are so helpless. Or it's worse to harm a elderly person or a disabled person because they are helpless. So if it's worse to harm a helpless human being, and those who can't survive outside of the womb are extremely helpless as a result, then it would be even worse to harm them. So that might be the cavalcade of reasons I would give. But point out that it's circular, and then maybe you could use the helplessness argument as well. But is that a helpful reply?
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was just debating how they believe it's human, and that was awesome. I appreciate it.
Right, and what they mean there is you could say, look, clearly they believe it's biologically human. It's a biological human being. They mean person, like it's not a full human. And then I would make them defend their claim because they're just assuming that now.
Eddie, I'm going to ask you to hang on the line. We'll send you a copy of Trent's book, Persuasive Pro-Life. We'd love you to have that. I think that will help you as you consider these things. I have a note, Trent, that on line 4 we have Archbishop Joseph Naumann from Kansas City, Kansas. Is that correct? We have Archbishop Naumann with us?
Yes.
Hello.
Archbishop Naumann. Hello.
How can we help you?
Well, I just wanted to thank you and Trent for, I think, this program. It's excellent, and I always admire the way Trent, and I think really all of your speakers on all the subjects really treat those that are asking questions and maybe disagree with what our beliefs are as Catholic, but you treat them with respect and you give them good, rational answers. And the only thing I would add is for the post-abortive, there's also Project Rachel. Most every diocese has a Project Rachel program for post-abortive ministries. So that's another avenue for those that are struggling with the aftermath of abortion. But thanks, Trent, for what you do, and Catholic Answers. You guys
thank you.
Represent the church really well.
Trent? Did he fall?
Well, I would like to say thank you, Archbishop, for calling in and for all the great pro-life work you do as well at the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. So, wow, I'm very heartened by that. And I won't admit I was sweating bullets a little bit. The Archbishop called. Did I make a mistake?
I know. I thought you were in trouble too.
No, not at all.
Well, I'll tell you what, Trent can't do it. So, Archbishop, we're at the end. May we have your blessing, and our listeners have your blessing before we go?
I'd be glad to. Yeah, Lord, we ask your blessing on all those that are listening. May they know your peace and joy. Bless them, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Archbishop Naumann. What a beautiful thing. That would have been Trent. You know what? You're quite a guy, Trent. Look at what you bring about. Archbishop Naumann calling to say such nice things about you.
Praise be to God for our Catholic faith. That's beautiful.
I know. All right. Well, we got to go to our break. Thank you, Archbishop, very much for the call. Thank you, Trent Horn, for very, very fine work today. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody, but we do these pro-life shows regularly, so keep tuning in if you'd like to call. Up next, Rylene Simpson, and we're going to talk about family members of those who have same-sex attraction. If you are in that boat, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Having a pretty good Monday. It is just so nice to be back here on a Monday. Thanks so much for being with us. We really do appreciate it. Maybe it's Tuesday where you are, if you're listening on the other side of the international date line. I don't actually know how that works. It has been explained to me. I don't know how it works, but it's Tuesday in some places, and we're glad you're here with us. Our number here is 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. And this hour, we're going to devote entirely to answering the questions of folks who have loved ones who experience same-sex attraction, maybe are living in a same-sex relationship, or you just need some help with how to respond in a fully Christian way, how to respond as Christ would call us to respond in those situations. You're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Our guest is Rylene Simpson, and if that name sounds kind of familiar to you, it might be because you saw the movie Desire of the Everlasting Hills. She was one of the 3 people profiled in that movie. She's been a member of Courage since she came back to the Catholic faith in 2009 and has been a moderator of an Encourage support group for a long, long time. Encourage is the Catholic support group for parents, friends, family members of people with same-sex attraction. Rylene Simpson, thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure, Cy. Especially a pleasure to finally meet you. I've been a fan, so.
Well, I've seen your movie, so now here we are face to face. It's very nice to see you.
Mutual Admiration Society.
Fair enough. Again, our number 888-318-7884. If you, by the way, I just need to say this, Rylene. I don't know if you know. Every show I have to say this at the beginning now. If you are an archbishop, cardinal, or the pope, you go right to the front of the line. So you are welcome to call. Same number, but we put you on line 1, 888-318. So you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. I was listening to the last hour. That's quite a kudo. I don't ever remember that happening, honestly.
No, neither do I, and it makes you nervous because how easy would that be for that to be a prank call? But it wasn't. It was Archbishop Naumann, and it was very beautiful, and we were very pleased to get his blessing. So I very much appreciate you being here to have this conversation. This is a conversation that so many families maybe can benefit from it, or and need, but often maybe don't have anybody or don't know that they have anybody to turn to and ask. So, a parent, let's say a parent now has a child maybe in their teen years who comes and says, expresses that they are gay, transgender, something of that. What advice do you give to the parents at the moment of meeting that situation?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's the $1 million question too, because I think the parent's response, it's an emotionally charged moment, and the parent's response at that point can do some damage, or it can kind of smooth the way for a little bit better relationship. So the first thing is, you're the adult in the situation, so you got to keep control of your emotions no matter what you're feeling. Mm-hmm. And because it's very, so much goes through the minds of the parents who have this experience. They start thinking about, how come I didn't see this coming? How can this be? I want so much for my child, all the dreams that you have for your child. So it's a very emotionally charged moment. And but the first thing you have to do is you have to just remain calm and say that quick prayer to the Holy Spirit, and try not to show any emotion, any judgment about it, because that's the first thing. They're watching you. So being able to just keep your face still, don't panic, know that God is with you in this situation is really, really important. And then the second thing is, after they've made this statement, you need to try to get a little bit empathetic at that point, and try to understand that whatever got them to this point has been going on for years. It's not something that just popped up this morning, right? So your child has been living through this experience of having these feelings by themselves, or with a group of people that you're not privy to, right? And so they haven't been sharing it with you. So my thinking is the best thing to do at that point is wrap your arms around your kid, give him a big smooch, and say, I'm so sorry you've been experiencing these feelings and not able to talk to me about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because that's the way most kids in the situation, even adults, I mean, I say kids, I'm talking about, anyone's children, no matter their age. But most kids in this situation have this big struggle. They're dreading this conversation with their parents, and the culture has told them they're going to kick you out. They're going to throw you to the curb. They're going to hate you if they're Christians. All this other stuff, and so of course we have to have our Christian charity kick in, and we have to just put ourselves in the child's place and understand what they've been going through and how they've been experiencing this. So that question, that sympathetic, empathetic, I'm sorry you had to experience this without me.
Yes.
Tell me about what you've been going through. Tell me about what you've been feeling is really, really important to establish that, I'm here for you and can accompany you through this situation.
888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. If this is a situation that you are encountering, have encountered, or would like someone else to help someone else who is encountering this situation, to be a good parent, to be a good friend, to be a good family member in such a situation, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. So, there'll be pressures and struggles from outside the family then too. So maybe you could prepare the parents for what they're going to experience as far as societal pressures in such a situation.
Right. So in Encourage, mostly the parents that we hear from are parents who are devoted Catholics. And a lot of times they are an island in a sea of cultural Catholics, even in their own family. So a lot of times other friends, other family members will tell them, you should accept this. This is, the way it is. Everybody knows that they're born this way. They'll give you all of the cultural lines. And so as a parent in this situation, you might start to feel really alone, right? Yeah. You feel isolated. So you need support. Parents need support in this situation. They need to be with other parents who also care about their faith and also who can relate to the situation that they're in, which is one of the reasons why Encourage exists as a support group.
And just maybe say a quick word about what Encourage is. Like, how does that fit into the kind of the Courage under the banner of Courage? And what's going to happen to me if I go to a Encourage meeting?
Yeah, wonderful. So there's the group in the Catholic Church that's called Courage, and started a long time ago, 40 years old organization, and its purpose is to help people who experience same-sex attraction live out their lives faithful to God's plan for human sexuality, essentially. And so under the banner of Courage, we have an organization called Encourage, which was started by a couple of parents who found themselves in a situation, and their kids, faithful Catholics, but their kids were living out the gay life. And so it was very difficult. It's a very, very difficult situation for any parent to find themselves in when they are faithful Catholics. And so Encourage has chapters just like Courage does, and if you go to the couragerc.org website and look up for families, you'll find a website there, and you can find a local chapter. We don't have chapters everywhere yet, but we're working on it. And so so we have meetings. Usually they're once a month, and of course during COVID they've not been in person, but some states are getting back to normal. But at these meetings, you really get the wisdom of the group, right? So there might be, at any meeting, maybe between 4 and 20 other parents in the same situation as you are. Also brothers, sisters, cousins, friends who also are Catholic. And so, and you get to understand the situation from a lot of different viewpoints. And you get the wisdom of people who've been through the situation earlier in the process, who are later in the process than you are. And so, yeah, it's a very helpful thing. Meets about once a month, completely anonymous, so nobody knows where it is and when it's happening until they get screened. So there's anonymity for the members. So, yeah, they don't have to worry about, coming out themselves as people.
Yes, right, because it has that element, doesn't it? Coming out.
It does.
Yeah.
There's some judgment about that, and that can come from any direction, right?
Sure.
There can be judgment from their friends that maybe you've done something wrong and you ruined your kid, or not, or from the other direction, you should be more loving, caring, open, affirming, et cetera, et cetera. So it's coming at these people from a lot of different directions.
888-318-7884 is our number. Rylene Simpson is our guest. If you haven't seen the movie Desire of the Everlasting Hills, I highly recommend it to you. It's a beautiful film about three really beautiful people, and she's one of the folks featured there. She's a moderator of an Encourage group, and Encourage is a Catholic ministry to family members of those who experience same-sex attraction. If that's you and you have a question, 888-318-7884.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live. The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
There is tremendous power in prayer, because when we acknowledge that we don't have the power, but God does, things then begin to move for our good. Remember Matthew 19:26. But Jesus looked at them and said to them, "With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Now that's power.
Eight 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH, our number. You're listening to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, and our guest is Rylene Simpson, who's here to speak with you. Well, is a moderator for Encourage, and what Encourage does is support parents, friends, family members of those with same-sex attraction, and that's what we're here to talk about. If you have questions about that, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Rylene, line's starting to fill up. Still 2 lines open. You want to go some calls?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go to Omaha, Nebraska. Tom in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on 102.7 KVSS Spirit Catholic Radio. Tom, go ahead with your question for Rylene.
Thank you, and thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate it. A number of speakers on this program, on KVS or on Catholic Answers Live, as well as virtually every psychologist, says that the actions or the lack of actions of the parents is what causes the same-sex attraction. Now, my question is, do you ever make this clear to those parents that they're the perpetrators and that their child is the victim? Because without that, you can never have a healing relationship. And so I guess that's my question.
Okay, well, that's a very interesting question, Tom. I haven't had that exact question before, so it gives me something to think about. So I would say if we look at the Catechism of the Catholic Church and what it says about the homosexual, I think they call it, the homosexual inclination, it says the psychological genesis remains largely unexplained. So as the church, I don't think we put ourselves in the position of being psychologists or in the position of, trying to identify the cause of this condition, situation. And I think that the purpose of the two groups, both courage and encourage, is much more about ministering to the people who are experiencing it or ministering to the parents. There's not really, in the way we're ministering, there's not really so much a role to put blame anywhere. In fact, all of the things that I've read about the situation, and by the way, I'm a Courage member. I was in the gay life for 7 years, whatever it was. They say it's a constellation of factors. There are many, many factors that contribute to this, and we don't know what all of them are yet. So no, we're not really, we're not in that position to put something at the feet of the parents and say that they're the cause of something like this. And frankly, parents feel very guilty. That's one of the first things that they do, is accuse themselves when they find this out. They think, what have I done wrong? Which is, is also not so helpful, to tell you the truth.
Tom, thank you very much. Appreciate that call. In studio with us, we have Isabel, and it's very nice to have people in studio. Again, Isabel, thank you, and you're very welcome here. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Rylene Simpson.
Yeah, so I just, how do you go about helping people to find their identity in Christ and their, the theology of their body when they're identifying as a they, or, they're attracted to people of the same sex, and that seems to be a really hot button to push when, you say oh, you're such a beautiful person, or, and they're like, oh no, I'm a they, and how do you do that in a loving way without pushing them away?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Isabel. Thank you for that question. So this is I think what this comes down to is relationship, and everything depends on what your relationship is with the person that you are engaging with. So if this is somebody that you have known for a long time, have a very close relationship with, have had long chats over coffee and that kind of deep, emotional bond, that's you get a different approach than if it's just somebody who's sitting beside you at church, right? And you've just met this week, so it all depends on what your relationship is with that person. The identity question, so I am I'm a supporter of the approach with people of just approach people with curiosity in a loving and supportive role. So I don't think it helps to tell people anything. Mm-hmm. I think it helps to ask people questions. And so you can ask questions about what their feelings are about the situation, how they're treated. You can ask people about when they first understood this aspect of themselves and when they recognized these feelings. You can talk to them gently about, just asking questions about whatever relationship they're in a caring way. You can talk to them about other aspects of their life. To me, I think that all of these things speak to their humanity rather than just addressing them as as some single dimension of who they are. Sometimes in that culture, that is the approach, to address people as, or to, kind of distill people down to the fact that they're transgender, or they're gay, or they're bi, or they're non-conforming, all of those other adjectives. They're trying to distill a human person with all of the dimensions that they have down to a single thing. And I think that's a mistake that we don't want to make. Mm-hmm. We want to talk to the whole person, and there's many dimensions to their lives. This is not the only thing. You can talk to them about their experience, and then when you talk to them about their experience, assuming that you're doing it in prayer, the Holy Spirit will guide you that when you can relate back to something of your own experience that is relatable, that has some kind of parallel. All of these situations that people find themselves in, this sexual, the I would say the human sexuality is only one place in our lives where we can be sinful and have problems, right? So there are a lot of people around who all of this advice would be the same whether you're talking to somebody who's maybe an alcoholic struggling, somebody who's an overeater struggling. All of our human frailties can be addressed in the same way. And honestly, I don't think that there's that much different. And then you have to let the Holy Spirit do their work to build up that based on your modeling of your Catholic faith and other Catholics around them. Let the Holy Spirit work on them and help them, I want to say, discover Christ in themselves and their identity.
Does that help, Elizabeth?
Yeah, it is. And I just wanted to, so is it wrong to say, like, I understand what you're going through, and is it wrong to, like, if there's a name change or they want to identify as they, is that wrong to say they? Or I don't want to, like, further mislead someone that's, like, having such a hard time finding the truth. I don't want to, like, further lead them away. My, intention would be to lead them to Christ. But, is it wrong to say, like, okay, like, I'll call you they? I mean, that just seems sort of, like, counter...
counterintuitive to the purpose of truth. Right. So I understand. So, I just came back from the Courage Conference that we had in July. I didn't just come back from it. We had the Courage Conference at the end of July.
You got out of there late.
I just come back. But and we had a lot of discussion about this he, she, they, them, all of the pronoun discussion. And there's mixed feelings about it, really. People say, don't die on that hill, right? They want to say, so if they want you to say they, it's easy, try to do that if that's what, if there's bigger fish to fry than that. But, and I think so I think the church doesn't have a teaching on this, but it's a prudential judgment. For me, I prefer to use the person's name, and that could be, whatever that name is. If somebody, you do have, once you're an adult, you have the authority to rename yourself. And so whatever you're going to call yourself, if you're used to be Michelle and now you're Mickey, so be it. And is that a boy's name, a girl's name? All kinds of names switch gender. My father was named Riley, and now that's a girl's name. So, these things change anyway.
It's interesting. I'm sorry, Riley. And it's interesting to me that folks that say the Courage meeting are working through this, and not everyone has come to the same conclusion. I think that's I'm glad that you said that, actually, because as a kind of a Catholic Christian community, we'll work it out over time, but nobody has the exact right answer yet about how to deal with these. We're slow. The world is fast, and so and the thing is, we're actually better when we're slow, when we take our time to figure out what's the most humane way to address a world that is now inventing all kinds of new pronouns.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think one more thing I'd say on this topic is that, so again, for me, when you're in a one-on-one conversation, you're not using pronouns anyway. You're saying, hey, Cy. You're saying, hey, Isabel, Right. So you're not using those pronouns with that person generally. Generally, it's when the person is away and you're using it with a third person party. So I'm not sure it's as, in the forefront as people put it. But the second thing I think we have to keep in mind, and if you don't want to use those pronouns, I think that we can make a good case for it. And my case for it is that we are human beings and we're embodied. We are a body-soul composite. We are, our bodies and souls are together. And all knowledge that we have comes to us through our senses. And if my senses are detecting that you are a woman, and then you ask me to call you something other than woman, than woman titles, woman pronouns, it is an assault against the truth. You're asking me to override what all my senses are telling me, and so I hear you that you want to be called that, but if you can understand my position, that I have to actually force down my own perceptions of you that are coming to me through my eyes, my ears, etc. And so it's maybe I don't want to lie to my senses, or maybe I don't want to override those, or maybe that feels like an assault to me. Maybe assault is too strong a word to use in that conversation, but you understand what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there's the music. Isabel, thank you very much for your
Yeah,
questions and for the very intelligent conversation. It's very helpful. And Rylene Simpson continues with us. We've got a bunch of folks on the line. There are 2 lines open, however. If you have a question about how to deal with a situation such as this that was just mentioned, or maybe you have a family member who's experiencing same-sex attraction, you'd like some help with that, 888-318-7884.
This is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Thank you for listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Most of us Catholic parents agree our number one goal in life is to pass on the faith to our children. But here's the bad news. Today's world has a million ways to steal your kid's soul. Don't be afraid, says Father Sebastian Walsh. God loves your children even more than you do, and He desires their salvation more than anything. In his groundbreaking new book, Always a Catholic, Father Walsh shows you how to cooperate with God to bring about the fulfillment of His will for your kids. Always a Catholic reminds us that keeping our kids in the faith is about the way we live our Catholicism in our own lives and as a family from day to day. Order your copy of Always a Catholic by visiting shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
This is Dr. David Anders. Does the problem of evil keep you from believing in God?
Join us for Call to Communion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
All right, we'll go right back to calls and to our guest, Rylene Simpson. We're talking about same-sex attraction, especially those who have loved ones who experience same-sex attraction would like some help with that. But if I go right back to that, I'm going to forget to do what I should do, which is give out a couple of web addresses. So if you're interested in Courage, Courage is a ministry to those who experience same-sex attraction and would like to live the fullness of the Catholic faith and need some help and support and community, and as we all do, to do that. CourageRC.org is where you go to find out about Courage. CourageRC.org. If you're interested in having the help of Encourage, if you're a parent or a family member or a friend of someone experiencing same-sex attraction and you'd like help with Encourage, you can find that at the Courage RC website as well, Courage RC. I mentioned the movie Desire of the Everlasting Hills, everlastinghills.org/movie. everlastinghills.org/movie, or just search Desire of the Everlasting Hills. You won't be sorry you did. If you haven't seen this film, you will not be sorry that you did. Our guest is featured in that film, one of 3 people featured in that film, who came into the Catholic, our guest, that is, Rylene Simpson, came into the Catholic faith or returned to the Catholic faith in 2009, and now is a moderator of the Encourage support group. And if you have questions for Rylene about how to be your best self in dealing with family members, friends who have same-sex attraction. 888-318-7884 is the number. We go now to Mike in Austin, Texas, listening on 106.9 FM. Mike, thank you for your patience. I realize we kept you waiting a while. Go ahead with your question, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. So it goes back to the $1 million question that you asked at the beginning about what do you say or how you act when someone comes to you or your own child comes to you and expresses these feelings. And I noticed that love was not used in any of your discussions with your child. There was some hugs, we understand, but was that an intentional, or is it something that maybe you just didn't think about? But I think that love and unconditional love to your child is important to say before you say anything else. And I'll leave it at that.
That's a beautiful point, Mike. And honestly, what a duh on my part, right? I'll confess, I'm not a parent, and I maybe I should have just assumed that, or should not have assumed that I love you, and it should be the first words. But you're absolutely right. That was a big oversight on my part, and those should be the first words out of your mouth. I love you. I will always love you. You will always be my child, right? I love you. I will always love you, and you'll always be my child. And so that's critical, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I thought maybe there was something else out there, but you get on the radio, you sometimes you miss some things, but because that's the most important thing: our unconditional love for them, no matter what happens, and no matter what they choose. So, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Agree more. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that call. Let's go to Canton, Ohio. Emily, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Go ahead, Emily, with your question for our guest, Rylene Simpson.
Hi there, Cy. Hi, Rylene. Thanks for taking my call. My son dated a girl for several years, and, after several years, she broke up with him and told him she was gay. So one of my questions is that possible that she could hide something like that so well and for so long? Or was my son just kind of naive and oblivious? We were upset because we felt that she, should have let him know sooner. All during college they dated, so his whole time was spent with her. And then also we were friends with the parents, and we feel like, it's awkward now and that we've kind of lost some friends over this. I mean, we haven't had any kind of confrontations, but like we used to do things together, and now it's like kind of awkward. We haven't really done anything.
Okay. Rylene?
Yeah, so I'm so sorry that this happened, but I guess the relationship with the parents maybe should be thought of something different from, should we have seen it or should we have known or all of that. People struggle with this issue, and a lot of times people have, men and women have feelings. The men who experience same-sex attraction will tell you they've felt it from the very earliest. Women, it can crop up at any point in time. No kidding, no joke. I mean, from, the time you hit puberty to, in your 20s or 30s or 40s, right? Sometimes, and my theory, having lived that life for a long time, and by the way, I didn't discover this about myself, if you want to call it this. I didn't recognize these feelings. I would say now, in retrospect, I didn't even develop these feelings until I was rejected a few times by guys. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm gay, and then I started to explore that, right? So she may have had feelings of being different. She may have found dissatisfaction in the relationship. You don't know what's going on with her, but our best approach would be not to assume anything deceitful on her part or that she was hiding something. People go through stuff and they come to conclusions and they make decisions, and you just do your best with it. So I would hesitate to worry that it was something that should have been detected or anything like that. As far as your relationship with her parents, you didn't mention whether, it sounds like you're not, I assume that her parents know. Is that correct, Emily?
Yes, they know.
They do know.
Yes.
Okay. So, if you were close with them, I guess I'm not sure why you would not be anymore. You can't control what your son does, and you have, as an adult, you control over him. They're not at fault for whatever broken heart their daughter left your son with. So, I'm not sure why it would be too awkward. People break up regardless of the reason.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Right.
if you enjoy them as people, you should live fully, embrace them, love them like you did before this announcement. Yeah.
All right. Well, I so much appreciate your insight on all this.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for the
so
call.
much.
Is this something like I'm wondering, just listening, we talked about the parent whose child comes out to them as gay and how you deal with now. I wonder about the friend of the parent. Is this something like, it seems to me like, I wonder exactly, some parents would want you to say, I'm sure this is very difficult and, how can I be helpful? Some would maybe take offense at that. They'd want you to celebrate, have you come up against that, and you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, as a friend of a parent who's going through this, I think the best approach is to just go back to the curiosity again, not intrusive curiosity, but hey, I saw your son's announcement on Facebook. Do you want to have a cup of coffee and talk about it? And you don't need to, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Especially if you are a faithful Catholic and you think they are, or you know them as faithful Catholics, knowing that they'll probably need your support, and they might be embarrassed, they might feel a little shameful, they might be still hurting, they might be angry. There's all kinds of things that they're going through. And if you're a good friend to them and you can be there for them, I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Again, our number 888-318-7884. We go now to Marietta, Georgia. Thank you, Emily, for that call. We go to Marietta, Georgia. Elizabeth, listening on 1160 AM. Elizabeth, thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Rylene Simpson.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I have a 15-year-old granddaughter who I just found out said that she wants to transgender to a male, and she's going to start hormones when she's 16. And I'd like to know what the teaching of the church is, because she's saying that she can't be Catholic now.
Oh, well, okay. So I think that this phenomenon of this wave of transgenderism is so new to the church that we don't have much of a doctrine around it at this point. So I think that you have to kind of understand what the church's, you have to interpret what the church's position would be based on God's plan for human sexuality. And one of the things about God's plan for human sexuality is that we're born with a body and the soul. It is, the body is our gift from God. Our lives are a gift from God. Our bodies are a gift, and we have the bodies that God gave us. So, I mean, this is foundational for you to understand, Elizabeth. It's not how you say this to your granddaughter necessarily, but but that would be that's really fundamental teaching of the church, is that we have a body and we have to respect our body. Our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. We respect the body very much, and so this idea of transgender is kind of in conflict with the teachings of the church, but you can't point to a doctrine and say, okay, paragraph 50 whatever in the catechism. It's just not, we're not there yet. It's all too new. There is a book, and maybe that you might want to read. And Cy, maybe you can help me with the title. I know you've cited it before. I think the author's name is Schreier. I've read it before, but it's Schrier, and the title is not coming to me. But it's about this this phenomenon, because transgenderism used to be a very, very tiny percent, almost exclusively males who wanted had this gender dysphoria situation.
Irreversible Damage is the book.
That's it.
Yeah.
Irreversible damage. And now it seems to be this wave of, it makes you popular as a girl to come out and say you're transgender and you need to be a boy and you're meant to be a boy and all of that. So it's a dare I use the word, it's a pandemic. But so the church, but regardless of whether you are whether you're living in alignment with the church's teachings, the church is still open to you. And I think the discussion has to probably start with, do you still believe in God? And working your way back down to make sure, does she still believe in God? Because sometimes when you experience this cognitive dissonance, these two conflicting thoughts that you can't resolve, you feel like you have to give up one or the other. So that's, when I went into the gay life, I was raised Catholic, but when I went into the gay life, I definitely had to abandon one or the other, the lifestyle or the faith, because it's just too hard you can't believe in both, right? And you recognize that internally. So it would be, but again, having a series of conversations with her about what her understanding is about her body. What does the church teach about the body? And I think the teachings that might be very helpful for you is, besides the Irreversible Damage book, is the Theology of the Body. So I would, get a hold of some Theology of the Body resources and look at them together, age appropriate to your granddaughter, and work through them with her, because this is it's irreversible, right? The hormones are not, they're not without their side effects, so intended and unintended. So
is that helpful to you, Elizabeth?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more with our guest, Rylene Simpson, right after this.
It's all about the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I have never seen women who want to be equal absolutely degrading themselves. And yet the media degrades your nature, your beauty as a woman, your goodness. Let us pray at some point our dear Lord touches their hearts.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul's Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Our number is 888-318-7884. And what a fine show we have had today. Both hours been very, very fine hours. But we still got time. We got more questions, and we've still got time with our guest, Rylene Simpson, this hour. And if you'd like to know more about her, you can watch the film, Desire of the Everlasting Hills. She is moderator of an Encourage group, and Encourage is a ministry of the Catholic Church to help those whose family members come out as gay or transgender or express that they are experiencing same-sex attraction, and often that means that's all new information, and we need help dealing with it, and that's what they do over at Encourage. You can find out about it at couragerc.org, couragerc.org. Not only do we have a lot of questions for you, Rylene, as we go into the last segment here, but we got a lot of tough questions for you. So you want to take a deep breath, and we'll dive in?
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Here we and you did it. All right. Watching on YouTube in Seattle, Washington, Patrick in Seattle, Washington. Thank you so much for your call. Go ahead, Patrick, with your question for Rylene.
Yes, hello. So, this question about, talking to children about them coming out, so to speak, I'm going to flip it on its head and say I've got a parent who has been in the gay lifestyle for quite some time. She is currently married to another woman, and, I was just kind of wondering if you had any advice on possibly leading them back to Christ and renouncing their lifestyle. That there's a conflict here because they're both wonderful people, and I do see genuine acts of kindness that they give towards each other, and I would just like to see them abandon the other side of this, the lustful side of this, as I see it.
Okay.
So if there's any advice that you could give on that, to people in similar situations like myself, that would be really appreciated.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for the question. It is a tough one. Whenever we are in the position, or we think we're in the position to give what is called fraternal correction, there's a couple questions we have to ask ourselves, and are we the right person to be giving fraternal correction, and so on and so forth. Like, will they listen to me? Will it have an effect? Do I have the right relationship? So automatically, the fact that you are a son puts you in a subordinate position to your mom, right? And it's not that we can't give feedback to them that is valuable and that they need, but it has to be approached with respect and caution. And you sound like you would perfectly do that. I'm not questioning that about you, but anytime you're going to approach a parent about things, you really have to be very, I think, aware of that relationship and the fact that you are the subordinate person in that, and they invested in you and they brought you up and all that you owe them as a parent, etc. So I think that in that situation, I don't think that my advice is that much different for you than it is for the first or second caller who asked about the kids. Providing a role modeling healthy relationship with you and your wife if you're married, being a faithful Catholic, being kind. It sounds like you are in their lives, so that's very important. Is to stay in the lives of the people who are living this lifestyle, and not at any cost, but working pretty hard to stay connected to them. Talking to them about God. I don't recommend, hammering the point home very much that the church doesn't approve of this, et cetera, et cetera. I always, once you've stated your position on it, that you disagree with their thinking in this area, and you can have a different opinion and still love them. I think that's an important thing to get across to people. That is one of the cultural memes in this world that we live in that's so destructive, is this idea that if you don't agree with me, you must hate me, right? And so keeping them in your life and as much as possible. That has to be tempered, of course, with how they behave and if you have kids and what age the kids are, and if there's public displays of affection and all of that stuff. So all of that has to be taken into prudential judgment and decision making. But I think there are always ways to stay connected, and just stay connected and be a good, charitable, loving son, a Catholic son.
I'm going to leave it. I hope that's helpful, Patrick, but I'm going to try to get as many on as I can now before we have to let Rylene go. I'm going to go now to Mark in Randolph, Nebraska, listening on 88.3 FM Spirit Catholic Radio. Mark, go ahead with your question for Rylene.
Okay, thank you for taking my call. If I am certain and have knowledge of someone living an active gay lifestyle, as a Eucharistic minister, would you encourage me or discourage me from offering them Holy Communion?
Oh, okay. So thank you for that question. It's a very important question. I'm an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion myself. We are not communion police in my way of thinking. And the way I've been trained, we're not communion police. We do not have knowledge into someone else's soul or where they are, what their condition or state of grace is. Even if you're convinced that a person is being actively engaged in the gay life, you don't know if they just went to confession yesterday and are clean as a whistle at this point in time. We don't know what struggles they're struggling with. We don't know how they got there. We don't know if there's any mitigating circumstances. So as far as our diocese is concerned, as far as I know from my own personal experience, I would say it's not our job. If they present themselves for communion, I would say give them communion.
And I think that you would find in almost universal agreement with that, with the apologists here at Catholic Answers. So I just want to add that to settle your mind, I hope. Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it. I'm only going quick because I'm trying to get as many on with Rylene Simpson as I can. And up next is Linda. Linda, you're going to have to be kind of quick.
I think that the answer that she gave for Patrick pretty well covers my question.
Oh, really?
And I think that I can let you go.
Oh.
It regards relationship with friends, and because of Catholic faith, they think that you, what would you call it? Turn your back
Reject.
on them because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so
I think,
I'm interested in this. So you have a friend who comes out as gay to you, and they assume that you're going to.
my friend's kids.
Your kids. Okay. They assume that you're going to reject them. You don't want to reject them, but you also don't want to just accept the lifestyle.
Right. And my question was, how do you meet that when you are Catholic and you believe one way? And I feel like I'm not to judge, someone else, what they're doing. I'm not the judge. I can still care about my friends. I can still care about people, family or friends, whatever they choose, because that's not my job. My job is to love other people.
I hate to break the news to you, Linda, but you sound like a Christian. That's
Catholic Christian too.
Rylene, what do you think? Did you want to say anything to Linda?
Linda, you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's an important question too, and I think people shy away. They're not really don't have direct conversations. I believe in being very direct, and that question about do you believe that we can disagree about something and still love each other? I think we have to start saying that to people, and it doesn't have to just revolve around this SSA issue, right? It's there's lots of issues out there where we get cut off from people that we should be relating with over doctrinal issues, and we still need to model our Catholic love to them. Yeah.
Okay, Linda.
I agree. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
but
you so much.
I think,
Bless you.
but I just as I'm making a judgment call on this one. But even though you answered her question when Patrick called, I think we got to charge her for the answer just as much. We're going to double charge on that one. Thanks, Linda.
No discount if you answer your own
Darren,
questions.
you're the worst. Why did we go all these years without Rylene on the show? You are the worst. I love having her as a guest. Will you come back, Rylene Simpson?
I certainly will. My goal is to displace Rose Sweet as your favorite guest.
Oh, easy. That's entirely a matter of money. So you want to give out any web addresses before we go? You want to give out the Courage address again?
CourageRC.org and EverlastingHills.org.
Rylene Simpson, thank you very, very much.
It was a pleasure, Si.
We'll do this again tomorrow, God willing. Catholic Answers Live.